Hey, I'm Thomas Cox here, your host for the IMCnow's monthly membership meeting and guest speaker-thon. In today's session, we're going to have two topics covered, one of which is how to write quickly with quality. That'll be the short 10-minute talk that I'll be putting on myself because it's a topic near and dear to my heart. And then the larger 30-minute talk that comes next is by Kimberly Allen. It's talking about the virtual office, how you can make yours even more awesome so that it, A, doesn't distract yourself or others, and B, so it makes you look even more impressive to your clients. I'm sure there's other good reasons to do that. But before I say any more about the session today, Chuck Roxon is our fearless president of our chapter. Chuck, any news, comments, welcomes, anything you would like to say to the group here live and also on the recording?
Kimberly, welcome. Welcome to civilization. And no, we're really glad to have you as a speaker. And frankly, I need to hear what you're going to say because like many other professionals, I get really good at this for a while and then I get sloppy and it's like entropy and I need it. So I'm really looking forward to your presentation today and I'm glad we're recording it. So Tom, it's up to you.
Super. And I want to also welcome Jerry Fletcher, Diane Gibson, and Margaret Dorchester, who are here with us live. And Margaret, if you want to do give us a sound check, make sure that we can hear you for the Q&A at any point, that'd be great. Also, bit of housekeeping. Next month, December, we're not going to have an online event like this. We're going to have a party, or at least that's the best thinking that I've heard. And Diane Gibson is the one organizing that. Diane, do you have anything to share with us yet, or we're still in the planning process? I know we'll be sending out an email invitation to folks, and you are muted. So, Diane, you're muted still. So.
Why do we forget to unmute? We sent out a survey about a week ago. We've gotten about 12 replies back. So if there are any members out there that have not sent their survey back in, we encourage you to do that so we get more feedback. It's basically selecting the best day and the best time that we can do either a virtual event or an in-person event or some sort of hybrid. So we're looking at mid-December and more details to follow.
Brilliant. Thank you, Diane, for that.
Yep. Thanks, Thomas.
Okay, I'm going to leap directly into my my presentation, which is on how to write rapidly with quality. And as with most of the things that I have learned as a consultant, I don't invent anything. I just source things from people much brighter than myself. And then I make sure to share them widely. So I'm much more of a curator or a collector than I am an originator, which is fine with me. Honestly, there's so much good stuff out there. I can't imagine being an expert in all the things that are out there. I'd much rather be the journeyman who collects all of the awesome stuff into one place and shares it. And so this is a system that I've used, that I've taught. I actually have a 6-week writing class that I put some fellow consultants through on how to generate content for marketing purposes, thought leadership purposes. And this is the boiled down essence that we'll go over here in about, I'll compress it into 10 minutes or so. And so the first thing to know is if you want the extended dance mix version of this, you can go to the original source. It's the book Extreme Productivity by Robert Pozen. Terrific book. And we might actually do a whole session on more of that book sometime, because he's got a number of excellent pieces in here. But when he was a university professor at Harvard, he tapped several of the other professors to get advice on how to write better and faster. And he had neuroscientists, psychologists, various other people weighing in to help him figure out, like, why do I get writer's block, or why does this take forever, or so on. And the advice that he collected and put into chapter 8 is what I'm going to share with you. And there's basically 6 major steps, but here's the key thing about all of them, is every step that I'm going to describe to you uses the same part of the brain, which is why if you try to do 2 of these things at the same time, they will conflict with one another and you won't be able to do either of them very well. And so here are the steps in order. Number one, have some point to what you're writing. A thesis statement, this might be your headline. It might be your first draft headline that you go back and then later fix and make it clickable. But if you don't have a thesis, you're not going to have much to say. So come up with something. I recently wrote one as a demo. I have a journal that I keep, and in the back, I have a section of my journal where I jot down the titles or subjects of articles I want to write, but can't write right now. And if you don't have a couple of hundred of those, you're not trying, because it's really easy. Oh, I should do this. I should do that. Don't let the thought escape you. Capture it. And then when it's time to actually write, you skim through the list and go, which of these amuses me right now? Or which of these is resonant with my clients right now? And one that came to me from that list was stop chasing symptoms. The backstory is I had lower back pain and I kept doing yoga with an emphasis on lower back stretches, and it did nothing. My back did not get at all better for weeks. And I finally said, well, wait a second. Other people have solved this problem. And I did a little research, and it turns out that often a cause of lower back pain is tight psoas muscles, which are the hip flexors in the front. I was stretching the wrong side. So I switched the yoga focus to stretching the psoas muscles. Within a week, I had relief. Moral of the story, stop chasing the symptoms. Find the cause, address the cause. So that's my thesis for this article I might write. Okay, boom, I've got a thesis. Now what? Next step is brainstorm your topic. And I would say do this for 5 to 15 minutes, mind map it if that's your style, whatever it is. There's a lovely book called A More Beautiful Question, which can help you brainstorm really, really well. Maybe we can do a session on that someday on how to do an awesome brainstorm. I'd be bringing that book up. And so think of all the things you might say and don't worry about which things you're going to say, right? That we want to be generative. The rule of every brainstorm is generate, generate, generate. And so think of everything you might say around your topic in step 2. Then take a break, because your brain is now depleted of glucose. And if you try to do the next step immediately, you'll be doing it with a tired brain. So take a breath, a break, a nap, a walk, clean part of the house, something, and then come back and go into step 3. You now have a brainstorm to work with. Come back to that brainstorm and start to cluster and group the output, and decide which of the clusters you want to keep and which ones are just a little bit too far afield to not maybe fit into the scope of one article. Maybe it's part 2 or part 3 or something. And so this clustering and grouping is where you've been generative, you've made a mess. Does this sound like some of the team meetings you may have facilitated? Like everyone brainstorms and creates Post-it notes, and then they have to cluster things and make order out of it as a next step. That's what you're doing here. You generated ideas, now you bring order and structure to them. But not sequence yet, just which ideas go together. And then you're going to scope by saying, which of these clusters will I keep for the next step and which ones will I discard? And if this takes you 5 to 15 minutes, that's pretty typical. When I did this for my demo with my Stop Chasing Symptoms, I got the thesis in no time flat because I went to my log in my journal. The brainstorm took me 5 to 10 minutes, and the clustering and grouping took me about 2 minutes because I already knew what I think I kind of pre-grouped as I was brainstorming. Next is sequencing. This took me ages because I kept thinking, well, no, that's not the right order. Well, but that's the order I think of it. But no, the audience won't think of it in that order. And that's okay. Take your time. Again, you're taking a break in between the steps to refresh your brain, get your glucose back. In step 4, you're going to take these clustered ideas, these units of meaning, like usually it's a group of ideas with kind of a head over the top of what that group means, and then all of the little facts that are hiding inside of that group, and just sequence the big groups, and then inside each group sequence the ideas of what's the right order to cover these. And then some of they might move around, like, oh, this idea doesn't go in this group after all, it goes over there. And you'll also, by the way, during ordering and organizing, you'll think of more things to say. That's not forbidden. It's not the idea, but you shouldn't prevent yourself from having a good out. Oh, wait, I know. Now that I'm ordering it, I realize I skipped something. Okay, good. Capture that. And the output of step 4 is basically an outline. of all the major headings you're going to have, and inside of it, kind of the minor points you want to make. You can now, as your step 5, again, after a break and a snack or a walk or something to refresh yourself or wait for the next day, draft the article by literally writing a paragraph for each point in the outline. Just write as fast as you can. Don't worry about quality yet. Just get the points out of your head. And you have now created an outline, and that might take you 5 to 20 minutes, depending. If you have voice to text, you can go even faster, because most of us type maybe 90 words a minute. We talk up to 150. Then edit that article as a further next step, again, with a break in between 5 and 6. And by the end of 6, you've got an article. And you've done it faster with less cognitive load, less writer's block, and less pain than ever before. Now, what I find when people tell me, oh, I'm trying to write and I'm struggling, is they're trying to brainstorm, order, and edit all at the same time. They're trying to write their final version from a blank page. And I know of no more painful way to proceed than that. So if you're trying to make yourself unhappy or block yourself or make yourself hate writing, well done, because you're doing exactly the worst possible thing for your brain, is to try and simultaneously do 3 things with one part of your brain that are all competing. And every time you edit, you forget your brainstorm. And then when you want to change the brainstorming, well, all your edits just got blown away. So it's utterly self-defeating to do it all in one go. And for those of you who have managed to do that, and I know a few people who actually do sit down and eventually come up with a final publishable thing, it's 20 hours of pain for them. This, for me, 90 minutes is a pretty good time on target for me to go from a thesis to an edited article that I'm willing to publish on my blog. So there you have it. In, I think that's less than 10 minutes, I've gotten you through the major 6 points. Questions, comments, thoughts. Some of you are probably already doing this either because you've seen this approach promoted maybe with slightly different wording by other people, or you've just stumbled onto it yourself. What are you noticing about your own practice that either conflicts with or reinforces this? Chuck, you've unmuted. Why don't you say?
Well, this is a nice refresher. I spent some time when I was younger writing for a couple of newspapers.
Oh, wow.
And, this is pretty much what you do. And your editor says, what's your statement? If you can start out with that, the concert was noisy. All right. And then you can go from there. Now, I'm going to put this up on my wall.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Diane, your thoughts?
So in my days at Sunstrand, I did technical writing, which is basically writing quality assurance instructions. So here's how to do final inspection, or here's how to inspect this part, or and then also did some technical writing training for a couple of companies in Spokane. But the idea is the same. And it's amazing that people that know the process in their head have difficulty writing it down. So some of the exercises I start with are really simple, like here's a piece of, here's a coffee filter, or a grab bag of things, and just taking something simple and say, okay, now explain where you would use this and what you would do with this and how you would use this to your partner. And I mean, it's pretty funny to hear people go through things because they start at the end and then go to the middle and then go back. So your process is spot on. I like it a lot.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Anybody else have any either concurring or conflicting experiences or thoughts?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Thomas. This is amazing and completely resonated with me. I'm actually finishing a book and I'm stuck. And I think that, like Chuck mentioned earlier, I think I'm going to post this on my wall because it's just so simple and easy. and I love it. Thank you.
You are very welcome. It reinforces my long-held belief that somebody out there is doing it better than me, and I should go find them and follow them.
Yes.
Yeah, there's
Jerry, you
always
wanna say something?
there was always a better way. And the interesting thing for me is I didn't know about this. And I've been writing for pay for a lot of years.
Right.
But I kind of, and listening to you, this is the process that I go through without really thinking about it, except for the brainstorming piece. I've never found brainstorming an easy way to get anywhere, between a thesis and the cluster, but
Okay.
here I am.
There you go.
But this is great. This is super nice piece of work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that concludes my piece of this. And let's move on to our main event, which is Kimberly Allen. So Kimberly's background, she was one of the first folks at, I want to say, at the very beginning of virtual meetings. Not to make you sound old, let's just say you're deeply experienced and you started as a preteen it wasn't Cisco, I'm forgetting the name. WebEx, yeah, good old WebEx, which was the only game in town for a long time, and has been in this world of virtual events and helping people with their virtual events for a very, very long time. And I'm so tickled that we've got her. Diane Gibson actually recommended her and used her herself to very good effect. So that's, we like to bring on folks that we know are awesome. So I feel pretty good about introducing you to Kimberly Allen. Kimberly, take it away.
Oh, well, thank you, Thomas. I am so excited to be with you all today. And this is such a great opportunity for me, and you don't know it yet, but you are helping me to reach a goal. I shared with Thomas a couple of weeks ago that I have a goal of speaking on 50 stages every year. Last year was the first year, in hopes to train as a TEDx speaker. So this actually meets the criteria for a stage. So I'm at 39 for the year. If you have any other events that you'd like me to speak at, I'm more than happy to. Just reach out. So essential virtual skills. This is something that I have been talking about for 18 years. I've owned the company now for 18 years and went to work for WebEx, who is now Cisco WebEx, 20 years ago, as Thomas just mentioned. And who doesn't need a refresher, like Chuck mentioned earlier, about virtual skills? Or maybe some of the things that I'll talk about today are brand new to you. In any event, we specialize in making your lives easier, one presentation at a time. And we do that by a number of offerings. We have coaching and training, and I speak at as many events as I possibly can because I'm so passionate about helping people understand the brain science behind how our brains function a little bit different in the virtual environment than the in-person environment. Thomas, when you said cognitive load, you had me. I typically speak about virtual cognitive load. In any event, it's my passion, and I'm just humbled that you're allowing me to share that with you. We typically work with companies who start with engagement rates that hover about 15%, as you can see here on the screen. And by the time I'm finished with them, or somebody from my team is, we can get your engagement rates closer to 90%. And guess what that does for your pocketbook? Puts pennies in your pocket when you can actually engage on a higher level with your virtual audiences. And a lot of the skills that I teach are transferable to the in-person environment. And we still do teach from the stage. It's just more common for us to teach from the virtual stage these days, thanks to COVID. Ground rules for the event today. And you'll notice that I use a very specific process when I am presenting, and that's one of the ways that we have helped people to systematize. Ground rules is something that you should mention in the very beginning of each one of your events, because if you don't give your audience ground rules, they don't really know what's expected of them. So our ground rules for today are very basic. Take a moment to close your other applications, and I closed my phone so nobody can get to me. Closing things like Outlook, which really sucks a lot of bandwidth, is always a good idea. your messaging boards, any other applications or devices that could potentially distract you. They distract from your learning. So take a moment to close those. Be as interactive as you feel comfortable. The experience that we provide is very hands-on. So I'm going to give you a behind the scenes experience today, and hopefully we can get through this in 30 minutes. And then provide feedback, any feedback that you have for me personally or us as a company. That's how we learn and grow. And that's how we've been able to stay in business for 18 years now, is by really, really listening to what's near and dear to your heart. If you have a suggestion for a new training program, we're happy to add that to the roster. I think we have about 15 training programs now that we offer publicly, quite a few more that are customizable as well. You are in good hands. With that said, I have personally supported over 9,000 webinars around the globe. True number. I have personally trained over 8,500 human beings. So you are in good hands today. Well over 20 years worth of being a corporate trainer, being on stages, really, really focused on the training industry. And I love it. Our objective for you today is to walk away with something that's of value. I guarantee you'll learn something new today that you can actually incorporate into your presentation environment tomorrow. Now, the virtual office audit is something that we hope helps you move away from this. How many of you, just by a show of hands, how many of you have been in a webinar or presentation where you're just pulling your hair out because the presenter is not presenting the content in a manner that's conducive to learn? Yes. Everybody raise their hands. I've been here. I've been here. We've all been there. Hopefully the skills that you'll learn today, thank you, Bill. Hopefully the skills that you'll learn today will move away from any of the pain and frustration that you're experiencing. And you'll probably start to notice things about other people's personal, unique presentation spaces after you go through the audit. And that's fantastic because that just takes you to a new level with your own skill set. So the virtual office audit is 7 steps, 30 minutes. We'll be a little bit over today because we had a short introduction, but we'll go through it pretty quickly. The virtual office audit was meant as a one-on-one service. And I have to tell you, we've been hired more times this year for group audits than we ever have before. The largest group audit that I completed myself was 200 people. And that was, we have one Fortune 500 client and that was for them. And they were just blown away at how simple and easy this is. So hopefully you find this easy as well. Step number 1 that we'll talk about is your webcam and your video. And then we'll move on to lighting. And we'll talk about your background in a group sense. We won't be able to focus on your unique background, but just in a group, little ideas about the microphone and tips that you can take away. Any kind of ambient noise. We'll talk about ambient noise and why it's terrible for your presentations if you don't settle the ambient noise, audio settings and bandwidth, and then a little bit about body language. Now, I would like to point out that I'm using a method that I love for PowerPoint. I like for people to be able to pin the video so that you're just using the PowerPoint as a support tool. That's my preference, but the way that we design our training programs is to cover auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learners. There are 3 main learning styles, and the way that we build the presentations cover all 3 of those. For those of you that are very visual, you can keep the presentation deck, the slide deck that we're using here, PowerPoint, you can keep that in the foreground. If you would rather be more focused on me walking you through this experience, then just expand the video and or pin my video so that's in the foreground for you. The gray out builds are something else. Thomas, I noticed that you used a couple of builds in your other I think it was in maybe the first couple of slides. And that's a great way to build in the content to help structure the presentation a little bit better. So that's not part of the virtual office audit, but I like to bring this to people's attention because it takes me about 4 minutes to teach you how to incorporate a gray out build. But look what it does for the audience. When I'm talking about ambient noise and it's black bold, you follow right along with me. I've moved on to audio settings and bandwidth. You're still focused on number 6, which is black bold, but in your mind, you're still processing ambient noise, microphone, background, etc. Just a great, simple way to engage with an audience. And so number 7 is body language. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Again, the virtual office audit was meant for one-on-one, not group settings. So we'll get through this as quickly as we can. I know that you'll have questions. This presentation always elicits a lot of questions. So I'll stay with you afterward to answer any questions that you have. And don't be afraid of the word audit. I know a lot of folks think IRS. Who's thinking IRS right now? Audit. It's so very serious. So don't be afraid of the word audit. This is going to be fun for all of you. The first section, like I talked about before, is webcam and video. Now, Diane has already had this experience. She knows that I'm very, very sassy when it comes to the webcam. I'm going to demonstrate this for you in real time so that you can see that this isn't anything magical. It's just that it's something you need to pay attention to. A lot of folks are logged into their virtual meetings like I am right now. I can see that there are a couple of you on the video, and I won't call out names because we didn't talk about this earlier. So I don't want to pick on anybody, but if you look at your own video, you can see that the angle, and you know, probably can see who I'm talking about. The angle is not the most engaging angle for anybody. Your brain is actually thinking, why in the world is the angle of the camera not conducive to learning? It's something that goes on in our subconscious minds, and it's not the best way to engage an audience, because what are you doing? You're essentially looking right at my nose. I mean, I have a cool ceiling, but do you think anyone cares about my ceiling? No, you can see cool open beam cedar ceilings, right? Nobody cares. So why are people still presenting at this angle? It blows my mind. I don't understand. We have a hashtag called End the Nose Madness. There you go. Thank you. So what I have done here, and I'll just demonstrate this to you live real time. I just have a little crate here. Now I know that you have an Amazon box or you have something in your office that you can set your computer on. All I'm doing is raising the computer up and setting it on the crate to create a more engaging angle for your audience. You think that this is not a big deal. I'm telling you that it is. Your audience is not engaging with you if you're looking at the other angle. They're not engaging with you in such a manner that you would in person. So really, if you just take a moment to walk through this with me, I'll help you find the right angle for you. Now let's be silly together. Give me a fist and put it on top of your head. Come on, you can do it. What you want to find is that really nice space where the edge of the video is at the top of your fist. This is just about the most engaging angle for your audiences. And the other tip that I can give to you is that you want to find the dot in the middle of your screen, and you want to look directly into that dot. You want the dot to be right in the middle of your forehead, about right here. That helps you. And you can go ahead and do this while I'm talking. If you want to fiddle with your video cameras, go ahead. Sometimes people have external cameras. I'm using an internal camera right now because I've got a pretty souped up system here. So for me, it works fine. I do have lots of external cameras as well. If you want suggestions at the end, I can give you names. So what you want to do again is find that green dot, have it right about the middle of your forehead, put your fist on top of your head, and have a really, really nice space there for the very, very top of the video feed. This is so simple and so easy. And that is actual media training. If you've ever been through media training, you know what I'm talking about. So there is your webcam and your video feed. This is one of the easiest ways to engage with an audience. Now, again, you do not want to log in with this angle. I'll share this little hashtag with you. We've got End the Nose Madness. I post about this all the time. I've been posting about this for years and years and years. Well, probably 4 years now, I should say. So it's just a quick bump it up 6 to 8 inches. I've posted this publicly for Oprah Winfrey and Reese Witherspoon. Now, I'm not saying that they changed their camera angle because of me. I'd like to think they did, but end of the nose madness. Just remember that hashtag, and that will help you settle into the screen so that you will be able to engage on a higher level. So that was webcam. That was section number 1. We'll talk about virtual office and the lighting. You can probably see that I've got a really, really nice area of light that is focused on my face and on my background. I have a gigantic ring light in my office because I'm on camera all day, every single day. You don't need something that is that powerful unless this is going to be part of your full-time job. So I'll just show you a couple of the different tools that I use. I've got one of these ring lights here. It actually comes on a post. I do travel with this one all the time. We set up virtual offices wherever we go, whatever hotel we're in or restaurant. And then we've got another one here, but this one is just a little bit different. It's just a little bit less powerful. I do like the ring lights that are tiny and they actually sit on your computer so that your audience can't see it. They sit right around your camera, your video camera. Does anyone have a light? Anyone in the audience using a light? Yes. Diane? Yes. Thomas? Okay, fantastic. Awesome, Phil, thank you. So don't forget the lighting. It is actually really, really important. And a lot of people just forego the lighting. A lot of people think that they have to spend a lot of money though, and you really don't. So we use this particular slide. I work with a lot of people in a lot of other countries, and they really don't have the budget. Just changing out the light bulb from a warm white to a cool white overhead can make all the difference. And light bulbs are not very expensive. They're pretty accessible. And I like to point that out, that we can set up a virtual office for next to no dollars. This does not have to be expensive, but you need to be mindful about it. All right, that is lighting. Now let's see. Let me see if I can pick on someone. Okay, I'm not going to do that. There are so many times when people log in to virtual meetings and their background looks like this. And the first thing that your audience does is say, now why is there a yellow hard helmet on the background? This is supposed to be a medical presentation. Or, wow, this person is very, very messy, and goodness, what happened to their admin? There are files everywhere. Do you see what starts to happen in our minds? And then our audience is missing our message. The most beautiful part of your message comes from what you can speak and what you can deliver live. It's very, very important to consider your background. Now for today, I'm actually in our dining room. My professional office is being remodeled and we're painting and doing a bunch of fun things with it. This is a very, very simple background. And I do encourage people, I'll just move the plant really quickly. You can actually warm up a space in about 5 seconds. Typically people have a plant somewhere, or this is just a silk plant that I've had for years. It's nothing fancy, but look at the difference. It takes a couple seconds to move the plant to the background. It just adds a nice amount of depth and it adds warmth. And that's something that you want to achieve with your audiences if you can. Now, all of the pieces and perks that I'm talking about create something that's called psychological safety. Absolutely key in any environment that you're presenting in, but especially the virtual environment. Any one of these items may not fail your event, but bundle them all together, miss out on all 7 pieces, and you're going to have a virtual audience that goes, oh no, not another one of these. So I love to demonstrate these things live real time so that you can see that there isn't any magic. I'm just opening up the back part of the stage so you can see how I set up my office. The microphone. We had a pre-talk. We were all together for several minutes before we started. And how many times did people forget to unmute their microphone? 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 at different times. Your microphone is something that you have got to pay very, very close attention to. The microphones that I like are actually external, and I'll just share with you the one that I'm using today. This one is a Samson satellite, and I do like this one because we can actually travel with it. It's got these fabulous little legs. It's got a little pouch that it comes in. So that's the Samson satellite. I do use a Meteor mic if I have limited amount of space. And there's also the big microphones like the Yeti Blue. If you are a person who is a podcaster or you're online all the time talking to virtual audiences, there's a lot of different settings that you can use. And I use these in hotels all the time to capture the audio for the speaker who is up at a podium. So we'll go to a hotel, completely set up the technology for the hybrid event. We just did one of these a couple days ago, and we had 100 people that were logged in. And we had 200 people that were in the hotel. And so we set up the technology with the microphones in a certain configuration, which we don't have time to talk about today. But, you know, again, after the event, if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer those for you. Now, let me just demonstrate what happened earlier. Okay, that was on purpose. I muted the microphone, but how many times do our speakers go live? We call it go live. It's a process that I created years ago. So when we go live, we need to be sure that our presenters and our speakers are not actually muted. Now, this particular microphone, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but it has a little button right here. So you can actually mute it on the microphone, or you can mute it on your computer. Zoom is very, very simple and easy. That's what we're using today, is Zoom. Very simple and easy to mute your microphone. Most of the virtual collaboration platforms offer a very, very easy way to mute and unmute. We have developed a set of stackables, is what we're calling them. They're little messages that you can magnetize the back of. It actually magnetizes to the back of your computer. And it's a little card. So it's just a reminder card that your audience can't see, but it will say unmute or speak slowly or breathe. I do a lot of one-on-one voice coaching for presenters who are very nervous or they need to learn how to use their voice qualities. And that's one reason that the microphone is so important. And you can do this with a sticky note. You don't have to, you know, pay us $5 for a stackable that's magnetized, but they're actually kind of cool because I travel a lot and they're laminated and you can use them over and over and over again, whatever is important to you in your presentation space. Have a lot of people that will simply forget to breathe during their presentations. Not my problem, obviously. So the microphone, consider an external microphone. I know a lot of people have not given any credence to this, but you can absolutely lose your audience if your audio is not crystal clear, and then they disengage and then they miss your message. So I don't want that to happen to you. Microphone. Now, ambient noise, we all have puppies. I shared with you that my favorite breed is Weimaraner, and I have puppies in the background. So we've got all the ambient noise elements that we need to think about. Amazon drivers, UPS drivers. I have gigantic signs that I put on my front door and on my office when I'm in my actual office that say event in progress, no noise, please. Another one of the stackables that we sell, they're 24 by 36. They are something that you can do for free. A lot of folks love the professional quality that we produce, but I like to tell people that everything I'm telling you, you can do for free. Just put a big sign. Talk to your Amazon drivers, talk to your FedEx, your UPS, whoever it is that's delivering for you. Talk to your kids. How many people in the audience have small kids and you're trying to figure out, how do I work and be mommy or daddy? How do I manage the ambient noise? Talk to them. Have a conversation that says, I can't have any noise from 3:30 to 5:30, for example. I told my youngest daughter that today, and she said, okay, mom, no problem. I know it's a little bit more difficult with the littles, but if you put up signs, have the conversations, make sure that your presentation space is peaceful according to how you define peace. garbage trucks. I have gone so far as to call the trash service and ask them when they'll be picking up or delivering at my address. So I have a sense for the ambient noise. It's very, very important. And if we were in a one-on-one coaching session, there are actually some methods that we can use to check your levels of ambient noise. You can also do that yourself. So that's your ambient noise. Your audio settings. A lot of folks don't know that there are settings on your computer that can really enhance your voice. And there are settings on the microphone, like I mentioned earlier, where you can use something that's called a dual noise cancellation speaker. A lot of times people like to have the boom on the microphone, and there are audio settings that you will want to check into. And again, all of this is available on Google. Check the audio settings and your bandwidth. The bandwidth is something else that people don't realize is a big deal, especially in the virtual environment. And you can actually share bandwidth in your home. A lot of folks don't realize that if you have a router, and most of us have routers these days, if you have a router, you can actually partition the bandwidth. So when I log into my Wi-Fi, it recognizes Mama Bear as the computer that is being given most of the bandwidth. A lot of times when you hear speakers go, they sound like robots and they cut in and out. That happens to all of us. Sometimes we can't get around it, but check the bandwidth settings so that you are being given the majority of the bandwidth. If you're sharing the bandwidth with a partner, with children, you might be running 2 businesses out of your home. That happens pretty often. Check the bandwidth ahead of time. And the audio is connected to that as well. Then we've got body language. Now I realize I'm running through this very quickly. I'm trying to stay within the parameters of 30 minutes, so I'm respectful of your time. Body language is something that I'm very, very passionate about. I see speakers all the time who are, you're using your gestures and your hand movements, and what people don't realize is that the gestures that we use, I saw somebody earlier make a gesture. I think that you were referencing a sticky note or something like that. So what you see here is really not a great picture of my hands. And this might be okay in some situations, but think about your gesturing in the virtual environment as completely the opposite of when you are on stage. So when I'm on stage, I like to use my hands and tell stories and draw people into the story. What I just did was very appropriate for on stage, but what do you think it did to your brain? I mean, look at what I'm doing. This is probably just driving your brain crazy. I see people do this all the time. I see a lot of, shuffling and hand movements going on. If you're going to gesture in the virtual world, try to keep your hand gestures closer to your shoulder. Go ahead and do that with me now. Let's be silly again together. Put your thumbs closer to your shoulder. And I realize that some people have mobility issues and movement issues. And so I don't want you to get into an uncomfortable place, but if you can gesture a little bit closer to your shoulders, look at what this does for your virtual world. I know that this looks different to you than this does. Me driving you crazy with my hands, because that's what I would normally do on stage. And a lot of people have a lot of really good energy and they gesture. And I love that when people gesture on stage, but it drives me insane to watch people do that in the virtual world. The other element about body language that I'm very passionate about is unwords. I've heard a lot of people already today say, making those noises that are not part of our language that we should consider higher level communication. Most humans will speak between 100 and 130 words per minute. Like Thomas mentioned earlier, some people do speak a little bit quicker. If you're really excited about a subject and you're talking, you are in the upper range. The unwords detract from your story. And there's a reason that you're using unwords if you're one of those people. Your brain is doing what it's supposed to do. You're connecting, and especially if you're speaking in a different language, your brain is trying to connect the two languages, and you're trying to think in two languages. I have a lot of non-native English speakers, and we work through the process of scrubbing the unwords from their talk tracks. If you're a person that says, hello, my name is Kimberly, and I'm going to talk to you today about body language and the virtual office audit. How annoying is that? Again, if you speak, let's just say you speak 100 words per minute. If you have got 100 words to tell your story and half of those words are so, yeah, but, yeah, but, all the unwords just as well as I do, they detract from your story. They are not going to engage your audience at a level that you want them to. And I have the secret to help you scrub the unwords from your talk tracks. I'm not going to share that with you today. We have full training programs that are just on unwords, and I run drills, and we have so much fun in these training programs because a lot of people don't realize that they're using unwords. I know a couple of you are probably resonating with what I'm saying right now. You go back and listen to a recording of yourself. That's one piece of advice that I can give to you, is to listen to yourself on the recording and start doing your own self-critique. I guarantee if you're using too many unwords, your audience is falling asleep and they are missing your message. They might not have a conscious thought about it, but when you use an unword, you are diluting the message. Think of some of the speakers that you love to listen to. Who can you think of? You could just send me a chat if you like. Anybody that comes to mind. I know a lot of people will say the Obamas, they have a lot of media training, though, is the difference. And Oprah Winfrey is somebody that I love to listen to. All of those folks have learned to scrub the unwords from their talk tracks. And that's something that you can do as well. It's one of those skills that is fairly easy to learn once you coach with somebody and go through the process. So that is body language. I'll open the floor for questions. If you want to be brave enough and unmute your microphone and ask a question, I would love it. And if you don't feel quite confident enough to ask a question, then you can send a question through the chat box. Chuck?
Can you say another word about external microphones? I have some, and I haven't used them a lot. What's the best advantage of using an external mic? And I'll start to do it tomorrow.
Yes, good. Well, that's a great question, and a question that a lot of people have. The audio sounds very tinny if you're not using an external microphone. Your audio sounds to me like it's tinny. If you have, I'm sorry, an internal microphone, it sounds very tinny. If you have an external microphone, listen to what you can do with your voice. As I bring the microphone closer to my voice, I can really use a different range if I want to. Now, this comes with the voice coaching, where I teach people how to incorporate inflection in different parts of their presentation, because if you use the same monotone voice during the entire presentation, you are going to bore your audience. But that's one of the things an external microphone can help you with. And you can set the ambient noise settings, like we talked about earlier, the ambient noise, you can have, just depending upon your microphone, there are lots of different settings that you can use. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question about energy. When you're on stage and you're giving a presentation, it's pretty easy to be animated with expression and move around and give a talk, and the perception of your energy is pretty clear. What are some tips that you might give about people who have to give a real forceful and intense presentation without the histrionics, you know?
The first thing I would say is to be sure that your setting, wherever you're presenting from, gives you your best energy. For example, I know that you can't see this, but I have photos of my kids. Sometimes we get into conversations, me personally, being the CEO of the company, I'm typically negotiating the bigger contracts. And like you said, it's very, very forceful energy, or you're speaking about morose topics. You as the presenter, it is your responsibility to manage your energy. Having photos of kids behind me, having something in the space that is warm and helps me bring that energy to the virtual space as opposed to a stage is extremely important. Now, there are things that we can do with your voice. We could play with your voice tones, and I could teach you where in each one of your sentences that you should inflect to hit home whatever point it is that you're talking about. Lots of different things. Was that helpful?
Yes, it was. I was also thinking about radio voices. If you have a natural radio voice, then it commands a certain amount of attention. Should a person that does a lot of webinars aspire to actually change their vocal quality to approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. I wouldn't say change the vocal quality. I would say to learn to play with the voice decibels and the voice tones. We can change the tone of our voice just a bit, but we can use inflection, we can use timbre, we can use volume. I can speak a lot louder if I want to. I can also speak a lot softer if I want to provide a more calming environment, which usually is not me, by the way. Usually I'm the one bringing the energy into the conversation. So I would say, yes, absolutely. But remember, a lot of the things that we do with our voice and folks that are on radio, it is because of the external microphone that they are.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for the Q&A. Thank you for all the expertise, Kimberly, and thank you for the audience for being here. And we have hit just slightly past the top of the hour, but I'd like to stop on time. So Chuck, you have a closing thought before we end the recording?
Yes, I want to thank you very much, Kimberly. This has been a really good focusing and reorientation, and I've gotten some really good ideas. I don't know if you noticed, I lifted my computer up during the presentation so that this works now, and I moved this thing forward. So I was able to make changes as you were recommending them. And Tom, I already ordered one of those small lights, and I also ordered one of those smaller external mics because I don't have as much space as you guys do for your studios. Right. So thank you. My goodness. I thought that this might be useful, but I didn't think I was going to end up spending so much money.
Well, what price professionalism after all?
Right. Anyway, everything will come tomorrow, so I'll be able to put it to use right away. And especially for the conference later this week, the IMC conference,
right?
I'll be speaking clearer. I'll be hearing better. Hey, thank you.
Outstanding.
So anybody else have any questions? I'm going to have to bow out in like 2 minutes or something, but please.
Right. And so it is the top of the hour. I'm gonna call it a close to the recording. Thank you all very much. Thank you to Kimberly. And if you're watching this on YouTube, look down in the description. You'll get Kimberly's contact information there. Thank you very much.